Hi, Mick McQuaid here to talk to you about troubleshooting queries. And the number one error that people make is not including a semicolon after the query, in which case you get a continuation line with a greater than sign and 3 dots or an ellipsis. The number two error is confusing between SQLite dot commands and SQL queries. So SQLite dot commands start with a dot, SQL queries end with a semicolon. So it's very common to confuse the two. Number three error is being at a terminal prompt instead of a SQLite prompt. So the SQLite prompt, the standard prompt that you get unless you change it yourself, is SQLite followed by a greater than sign. Terminal prompts vary from dollar signs to percent signs to greater than signs to others. Mistakes in case. Remember that SQL keywords are case insensitive, but table and column names are not. Table and column names are case sensitive. In fact, I have to admit, I do everything in lowercase because of that. I try to avoid uppercase at all because otherwise I don't remember. Incorrect punctuation is very common. Missing commas. Sometimes these will give you continuation lines, which is a hint that there's a missing comma, an unclosed quote, a mismatched parenthesis. Sometimes there are clues for this one. The order of operations. So if you say, from before you say select, for example, the clauses occur in this order: select, from, join, where, group by, having, and order by. Some additional advice is try to isolate the issue by cutting things out. So make the query shorter to figure out what's going on. Figure out what databases are available by saying .databases. Figure out what tables are available by saying .tables. Check table info with either pragma table info and then the name of the table here. Or you can say check schema with .schema. Notice that this is a SQL command and this is a SQLite command, but they both yield very similar information. You can use the up arrow repeatedly to see what commands you recently sent. That often gives you some insight into what you're actually doing. You're in the wrong table or the wrong database or something. You can tell that by looking at the command history. And you can use the .dump command to see the SQL that created the current database, and that sometimes gives you some insight. Okay, so that's all I want to say about troubleshooting queries. Make sure you go through these things when you have a problem with a query, but don't be afraid to contact me when you have a problem with a query, okay? So I'm always happy to help. It's often easier for me to see what's wrong with the query than it is for you. By the way, I always end with the end sign, but I also have on these slideshows a colophon. Colophon is supposed to tell you how the document was created, and this document was created using Quarto, and in the lower left-hand corner is a link to the Quarto website. Quarto can be used not only to create presentations like this, it can be used to create all kinds of documents, and it has output formats of PowerPoint and Word, PDF, HTML, and various other formats in addition. Colophon usually tells the fonts that are used, and I'm a little embarrassed to say I'm using default fonts. So these are two of the most popular and overused fonts. And then for the code in these presentations, I use this font, which is the font you see for the word Quarto here. This font produces some things that are advantageous for programmers. Okay, so thanks for your attention, and that's the end of week 7.